and a very warm welcome to the old shop. I'm here in the front garden where, as you can probably see, I'm having to kind of compete with all the greenery around me, but I've managed to find a little nook to sit and talk to you. I have got quite a lot to do out here, but I'm really heartened to see that quite a few of the original plants that I put in all that time ago have come up again this year and are actually flowering now. I specifically put some things in that would be nice later in the season when other flowers have finished, and as I say later in the video, as you'll see if you keep going to the end, in the back garden there aren't really any flowers, but in the front garden we've got quite a few. So next time we'll have a little tour of that. I'll hopefully have cut a few things back that need cutting back, but I can just reach and show you this. This is one of the original plants I put in. It's called Castrum, and it's really good for wildlife. The seed heads stay on, and I think they probably provide food as well, but they also provide shelter. So that's looking really nice this year, and so are several other things, but we'll look at that next time, which I hope won't be quite so long. But as you'll see if you keep watching, I've been away 3 particular times. I've just done a little kind of slideshow of just a little flavour of those, but 2 of them were locally in East Anglia here, part of this longer trail leading from this very place right down to Sutton Hoo in Suffolk, where the Anglo-Saxon ship burials are very famously, well, made very famous. Well, they're very famous anyway, but the film The Dig probably brought them to even a larger audience a few years ago. So very interested in that, and the idea of actually being able to walk all the way from here to there, which is a long way basically. On the other part of Norfolk, quite high up in Norfolk, and Sutton Hoo is quite low down in Suffolk. So we'll see how that goes. Not there yet. Then done 2 more legs, which I've documented here, and also I've also been to the Lake District, which is really the first time I've ever been there, and that was a pilgrimage. It's called St Bega's Way, and you'll see again later on, but it goes from St Bees Priory on the coast right down to St Bega's Church by Lake Bassenthwaite, and it goes, well, it was very challenging for me, very rocky, a couple of climbs where not true mountain climbs, but quite a steep climbs with views down, which I was not very happy with. I had to kind of look away from the edge, and also it was raining a lot, and it was also very windy on that particular day with the biggest mountain. So I really felt quite proud actually that I managed to overcome my fears. It's very different from just sitting here in this little corner of Norfolk. But just to make it a bit more normal, for an old shop video, there's also a tour of the back garden, which I've gone into quite a bit of detail this time because we haven't been together for a while. So it just remains for me to welcome you again and say I hope you'll enjoy this visit to the old shop. Stone Circles and Saints, a pilgrimage from St Bees Priory to Lake Bassenthwaite and St Bega's Church nestled under the mountain. So the trip started with visits to Stone Circles and to a rather amazing set of caves called Lacey's Cave, which you can see here. The sandstone is veined, it's almost like being inside a body. It's quite an amazing place over the water. Approached through a very muddy walk through some woods, and you're not sure whether you're going to find it or not, and then suddenly there it is, and spent quite a bit of time in there exploring. So this is the front entrance of St Bees Priory. It's a very different kind of portal from those caves, but you can still see the same red sandstone, and all the beautiful carvings. It's a Norman doorway, and the faces are typical of that kind of era, but they're very, very faded. It's beautiful to watch them and see if you can, which ones you can spot. From there, it was on for the 40-mile St Bega's Way pilgrimage, and through lots of different terrains, over mountains, or at least the sort of side pass of a mountain. Very tricky weather. And this is St John with his little dragon and a chalice. I can never resist photographing, and I found one of those along the way. More stormy skies, but eventually this is St Bega's little church on the shore of Lake Bassenthwaite, under the huge lowering mountains, including Skiddaw, that suddenly the sun came out, as you probably just saw, and that was the first time we'd really seen blue sky. And afterwards went back to St Bees, and this is St Bees Head, looking for St Bega's cave, where she is said to have landed when she arrived from Ireland. I think we did find it. It was quite a walk over the headland, and then there was a little ledge, and you can see here how the waves were coming in. You can imagine her sheltering there and wondering what she'd come to. And finally back in the van and back cooking over fire at Keswick, which was a really lovely thing to do, and actually visited a really lovely pub as well in the evening called the Crafty Bar, and did an open mic. So that was quite a full and varied experience. But then went the next day to Catbells, which is a really well-known hill to climb. Lots of people do climb it. And I was really interested to give it a go, particularly as I've loved the story of Mrs Diggywinkle by Beatrice Potter since I was a very young child. And it's set actually on Catbells. If you look at the very tiny writing at the end, you see that it's you get the clue that that's where the story takes place. So this is the view here from Catbells, and there's an idea of the rocky terrain when you have to scramble at the top. So it's an easy climb, but not that easy. Then after that, on the way back, I discovered an amazing holy well, which was dedicated to St Oswald. I had no idea that was going to be there. It was actually right beside St Oswald's church at Kirkoswald, and the water apparently flows, a spring which flows right under the church, under the nave, in fact under the high altar, which is pretty magical. You can see what was there first. There's a little cup so you can draw the water up. There's the little door that you can climb down some steps, and if you open the door you can see the bottom of the well, and there's a little slit where that's the side of the church where the water, you can see it there on the right hand side, where the water actually goes right under the church itself. And the church is still standing after hundreds and hundreds of years. couple of weeks after coming back from Blythburgh, the walk started again at Blythburgh, and the idea was to walk to Snape, which is the site of the first known ship burial in England, I think, or Britain, rather than Sutton Hoo, which is the final destination. So this part of the walk wasn't so long, but it was very hot weather, and passed by Minsmere Chapel, which is a ruined chapel you can see here out in the marsh. It's a very atmospheric place. And in the distance, as you'll see in a moment, you can see the white dome of Sizewell Power Station and some horses. And here's Sizewell Beach, which Sizewell's got a strange name because it is a nuclear power station, but the beach is so beautiful with all this beach vegetation like these horned poppies you can see. And the walk also went along by the water here. There were lots of dragonflies. These were some of the first I've seen this year, flitting over the shallow waters, and they were really beautiful to watch because the light was dappled and lovely. This is a mandala, or mandala type of beach construction made for the midsummer, because it was at midsummer at the solstice. And then this is the shell sculpture, very well known by Maggie Hambling, on the beach at Alders, which I had to take lots of photographs of from different angles because it is so intriguing. This is the churchyard at Alders, gravestone, and then lots of gravestones in the sunshine. It was a very peaceful place. Noticed a gypsy caravan in the garden, always a big draw. And then walking along by the estuary here, and finally a little gift made from the ripening barley before ending up getting the bus back to the old shop. I know it's ages since we've had a tour of either the front or the back gardens actually. You know the score by now. You're not going to see anything perfectly manicured, but I thought, it's a good record of the season. See where we are. It's a slightly strange time of year in the garden in that there's not a lot of flower to see. There's some of the flowers have finished a long time ago, and it's not really autumn. I'm not even sure what does flower in this garden in the autumn, actually, in the back garden. But anyway, there's little bits and pieces to see, as well as just maybe giving you a little bit of encouragement if your garden, like this one, has been allowed to run fairly riot, and you realise, everything survives. You do survive. It's not the end of the world if you've got ground elder or bindweed, although I must admit I would prefer not to have the bindweed. I don't like to see it smothering everything, but it is what it is. So anyway, without further ado, I want to firstly show you, because I've been collecting for, weeks now. Every day I will go into the garden and just pick a little bit of fruit, soft fruit. So despite not being pruned or looked after particularly, there's been lots of fruit. This is very much the tail end. I'll just show you what I've got in this sieve here. This is just really, every day I've been collecting more than this, but this is just to show you what I collected today. So I've got some little alpine strawberries, I think they're tayberries rather than loganberries, but I'm not ever sure of the difference quite. So I'm sure someone will know. There's a few raspberries. They're really tiny, the raspberries, because it's been so dry this year here. And loads of red currants. Now, they are really much later than everything else, so I've been just picking the red currants. I had a big container full of them yesterday, but this is just the ones I found ripe today. And the very, very last black currants. Again, there have been loads of black currants, and they've also had another fruit, which I haven't got any more. They're finished now, but they're called josterberries, and I've never had josterberries before. But they had the plants, but they hadn't had josterberries on, and they're a cross between a black currant and a gooseberry. So they're bigger than the black currant and not quite as black, and the flavour really is a cross between the black currant and the gooseberry, if you can imagine such a thing. And there weren't that many, but there were some. So I'm mixing everything together, putting everything in the freezer, and they'll be used for all sorts of things. There's actually enough of them to say that, but particularly we'll have a ritual summer pudding, or it probably believes it be sort of pre-Lammas kind of summer pudding, probably next week or the week after. So I will show you when I make that. I actually tasted the most delicious summer pudding ever, and I can say that even though my mum used to make summer pudding every year, and she would like to think hers was the best, which it was really good. But this was actually better. So it was actually a pub dessert, and it was the only vegan option. And usually the vegan options are a little bit oh, I don't know, you sort of think, oh, I'd rather have sticky toffee pudding really. But in this case, it was the best option you can imagine. It was the most delicious, the created dish. It wasn't just summer pudding with the beautiful summer fruits and moist, I suppose it was bread, or it might have been some kind of brioche they'd used, I'm not sure. But it had little sweet crunchy bits in it. I mean, it was just inspired. So I'm actually going to phone or write to or something the pub and ask them what they did, if they'll let me into a trade secret, and if they do, I shall be using that in my own. So I'll let you know. Oh, actually, while I'm talking to you, I can see, also I didn't collect, so I didn't see them. I've also got some ripe blackberries here. Contrary to what you might think, or imagine here at the old shop, they're not actually wild blackberries or brambles that have found their way in, although I'm sure that there are plenty of those. But I don't think they're mostly, at least not around, the wild ones around here aren't ready yet. And also, they've been so dry, a lot of them, like the same thing has happened in other years, some other years, unfortunately, they've just dried to little husks without actually ripening into blackberries. But these are actually cultivated varieties. I put in 3 different cultivated varieties of blackberry, which I don't know what any of them are, to be honest, and they weren't all thornless. I think this might have limited thorns compared to wild ones, although I can still see thorns. They should hopefully be bigger, and it looks as if because there's more moisture retained in the garden, that they are, turning into blackberries, which is good. So I've got one here, if you can see, focus, and hopefully there'll be quite a lot more, because they will add in very nicely. And I know there are wild ones around, so what you might say, what's the point of growing them? But I think a year like this actually shows you the value, because they may not be very many, even though there are thousands of them on the bushes. It's a really good year in terms of the blossom that's set, but lots of it, unfortunately, is not going to come to anything, which I find really sad. Not really for us so much, because we can survive on other things, but for the wildlife. Anyway, on that note, I'll just show you a little bit of what there is to see. I'm just pointing the camera here actually at the rowan. Now, for some reason, I don't know what the reason is, it hasn't got any berries coming, which it has in previous years. I don't remember seeing any flowers even this year. I do not know why that is, which I've just noticed. It shows how little I've been taking in, really. But anyway, we'll find some rowan out in the wild, I'm sure. There's lots of tangly stuff going on, almost too much to be really worth identifying. I mean, there is mint in between other things. And there are raspberries here and there, which I've just found them lurking, among other things. There's one here, not ready yet. That's quite a big, this is a lot bigger than most of the raspberries have been. This is the willow thicket, and it's not really, well, it was sort of an unintentional willow thicket. It's because when I put extra plants in the hedge when I first came with the little, I think I had about 75 little saplings to put into the hedge to thicken it up. And I couldn't find space for these willows, and so they got healed in to the earth down there, and that's actually where they've stayed. So, and they've now grown into trees, which you probably see tower above our heads. But the willow, when the straight willow grows up like it is here, it's actually really good for weaving, weaving in general, but weaving willow wreaths. If you want to weave a willow wreath, a seasonal willow wreath, you've got all the materials you need, so it's not a bad thing to have. There's lots more blackberries here. These are more like how the wild ones are this year. It's a good example. So you've got where there was a flower, you'd like to see a blackberry, and they're just little dried up things. And even here, there's a little bit of hard green fruit, but I don't think that's going to turn into a big succulent blackberry, unfortunately. It's just been too dry in the garden as well as out in the wilds. There's more moisture than there is out in the hedgerows, but there's still not enough really for them. Oh, certainly this variety doesn't look very happy. What never seems to mind though is the bindweed. So here's lots of bindweed, and I won't keep pointing it out because just take it for granted it is everywhere. The compost heap is falling to pieces now, which I'm not going to linger on that, but I'm not quite sure what to do about that because it was built for me 2020 by someone who came to do some work in the garden made the raised beds out of old wood from here, and this was made mostly out of pallets as well as out of floorboards, and it's just basically come to the end of its 5 years. It's come to the end of its life, and I'm not quite sure what to do about it. But meanwhile, before we worry about that, I've got a beautiful clematis to show you. Now I can't, you won't be surprised here, I can't remember what it is, but it's either a 12 violette, which I don't think it is, or Polish star, which I do, or no, Polish spirit, which I do think it is. I think it's Polish spirit. But anyway, again, something someone else may know better than I do. I can see some better looking blackberries, but they're right up way above my head, so I think the birds will be having them, as they had all the cherries. I had a Morello cherry tree also on this north side, because they're a cherry that likes the north, and they're a fruit that will grow on the north side, which is always useful. But I noticed that they were ripe and ready, and I thought, oh, I must pick them. And then the next time I went out to have a look, there weren't any, so it was my own fault. And I'm sure the birds enjoyed them. Now I'm going to rather gloss over the vegetable beds in the way I usually gloss over the rest of the garden and show you the vegetables. I haven't really tended it properly. It's not really been here enough. There's been too much temptation elsewhere with the weather and having adventures basically. So most things haven't really come to very much. But I do have to show you some lovely looking runner beans. Oh, not the beans themselves yet, but the flowers, which promise hopefully some beans. I can't see any baby ones yet. Oh yes, I can. Well, this is so baby, I don't even know if you'll be able to see it. If I put my finger there, that's where the bean will come. So that's one, and there's probably a few more. And there will be, I'm sure that there will be. We've had quite a bit of rain this morning. I just thought I'd pop out while it was nice. And we've had very little rain, so it's been quite good. But that helps to set the flowers, so there should be, hopefully be some beans. I don't feel there's much else to show you because I haven't kept on top of it. I've been picking the odd thing here and there. I've been picking parsley and rockets that went to seed, and various other, coriander. Mostly the herbs and dill. I think they're always worth growing, the herbs. They are very hardy plants in general, and they'll always give you something fresh to add a little bit of something to the cooking. So I think they're always worth it, even if other things don't come to so much. I had some lettuce as well, some ruffled sole and elf ears, which I sowed some more, and that seems to be coming through. I will show you that, because it doesn't look too bad. There we are, look. That's ruffled sole. That's a second sowing of it. The rest all kind of scorched up. And this, I can show you this for you, carrots. So hopefully they'll have carrots underneath soon, sometime. So let's have a look at just a few of the trees and the under shrub layer in the little forest. So this is the Guelder Rose, and the Guelder Rose seems really happy, I must say. I think they do grow really well. And these are the Guelder Rose berries. I believe that they may be edible, but I think they'd be probably better. Again, they've kind of I really grew it to be wildlife friendly, and the leaves turn beautiful colours as well in the autumn. It's a very nice plant, and it has blossom in the spring as well. It's a very good wildlife, sort of wild native plant to grow. And then on this side near the hedge, we've got the little pear tree. Now this has actually got some pears on this year. Never had pears from this tree before. Some years there haven't been any pears on, and the year that it was full, they all disappeared for some unknown reason. They all literally overnight, they were almost ready and they just disappeared. So that has remained a mystery, actually. There was not even a trace of a half-bitten one on the ground or anything. But there are a few this year, so I'm hoping, keeping fingers crossed. And I've just noticed something really exciting, because this garden's full of hazel trees, full of them. I've put so many in, and there hasn't been a single hazelnut. And I don't think that's the squirrels coming keeping an eye on them. They haven't formed, but look, we have a hazelnut here. And a pair of hazelnuts. Oh, they may have got some sort of disease, I'm not quite sure. But nonetheless, that's the first hazelnuts I've ever seen in this garden. So you saw it here first, because I literally did not see it, so I just showed them to you. Oh, another tree that's never had any fruit yet is the damson. And again, coming out to give you a little look round, it's given me a little look round, and there are just a very, very few admittedly just a very, very few green damsons there, but that is the very first time. There are only a few. Well, actually, they're very high up. There might be more right at the top there. And because of the way the forest is now developing, and had some help with clearing it, wonderful help with clearing it, it means that the forest floor is now becoming a bit more forest floor like, and I'm in the middle of the little grove of birch trees, and I don't know whether, maybe it's not the easiest way to see this is a little grove of 5, but perhaps if I step back you might be able to see all 5 trunks. I'm not sure. Not the easiest thing to show you actually, but it is. It's like a little circle of 5 trees which you can now step into. In fact, right now I'm right in the middle of the tiny forest, and when I show you up here, you can just see a canopy of leaves. So this, again, I know that a lot of you know this and have been following the old shop, so thank you for being with me. But you may know, and it was probably an old video, well, there is an old video somewhere from about 4 years ago, 4.5 years ago now, where you can see where I was planting them, and they were all just little sticks. And I'll just show you roughly on, well, one that hasn't grown as much. I really ought to cut down probably some of these little ones and give more space to others, and perhaps have them as a shrub layer. But this is a really narrow, a little small one. But they were thin, much thinner than this, and they were just up to about my waist maybe at the most when they were in the ground. And now most of them are really thickened out like the birches. The birches have gone more or less like, well, some of them have. This one is, I'll just show you. This one's a proper silver birch looking birch now, because it takes them a few years to do this, to develop the silvery colour and the peeling bark. They start off just a sort of brownish colour, and then you realise they're silver birches quite after a few years. And the shrub layer is a shrub, pretty much a shrub layer. Some of these are the wild fruits that I put in, for example. Although there's lots that could be done to make it better. I'm not at all claiming to be an expert on this kind of gardening in the slightest. I've made loads of mistakes, but it's nice to see what trees are here. I think this one is cherry, a wild cherry, because you can see how this bark is all stripy, which wild cherries are, and well, all cherries are like that to an extent. Loads of hazels. The hazels are the happiest trees in the garden, I think, almost, apart from the alders, and they are just yeah, they just romp away. When you think hazels are more of a bush than a tree, some of them are really tall, and the alders, oh, that's not a very happy alder. Just noticed an alder that might need to come out because it's got no leaves on. Well, that would leave space for other things. It's all I can, without wanting to be too hard-hearted, because I can't think how. It's really hard to bring myself to lose trees, but yeah, that might have sorted itself out. So just coming out of the woodland for a minute. So this area here, some of these plants were actually in the vegetable bed, and I moved them earlier this year. There's some foxgloves and some comfrey. This is comfrey, which does take over everywhere, but I don't mind because it smothers other things, and you can cut it down and use. The leaves are really good. I'm sure most of you know, for fertiliser. You can actually just put the whole branches, or like sprays of it down, the leaves on the ground as a mulch, to leach out nutrients, which I might end up doing. That's quite an easy way of using it. There's several of these, but some of these are not very happy looking now. It's that time of the season, but black currants, that I had quite a few black currants from. We've got a little table and chairs here, a bit weathered, but they're a nice place for them, just at the edge of the little woodland here. And that you can see the little path that goes through between the trees, which is starting to look quite intriguing, amazingly. And the sea buckthorn, which I'm always wondering if it's a good idea here really, but it's not far from the sea, so it sort of seems a good idea. Apparently it helps to fix nitrogen in the soil, and also you can see here there's just the start of the berries. I've not even used the berries since I've had this little bit of, well, I say hedge, there's 3 or 4 of them next to each other, sort of like a hedge, but they're really high in nutrients. They're really good for you. So The oil particularly, I don't think I can necessarily make oil, but I could probably infuse them and use them in some way. So I'm going to look in, that's one of the things for this autumn I shall look into, because I don't want to just let them go to waste. Another thing we've missed, because I didn't make a video at the right time, unfortunately, because it was rather amazing, so I should have done, but this is the apricot tree, and I think I might have showed you last time that there were actually some little apricots forming. Well, they actually turned into proper apricots. There were 4 apricots in the end, and they were big, juicy, sweet, amazing apricots. Like, I've never had apricots straight off a tree before, ever. This is the other pear tree, and a very large nettle, which does have pears. I have eaten pears from this tree. It's a commies, and they are really nice. So usually there are not as many when it comes to them being ready. You lose some, but there's not a huge number this year anyway. But you know, hopefully what there are here, because there aren't that many, they'll have a bit more of a chance to ripen. They won't be competing with each other so much. So I'm looking forward to those, because they're quite a highlight. Well, this bed, well, you won't be, no surprise to you, I'm sure. This bed is just a complete tangled muddle. This was once called a herb bed. It bears about as much relationship to herbs as the yoga room does to doing yoga indoors, because it's named that before I moved in, and it's just not really the right shape or size for doing any yoga room whatsoever. So it's still called the yoga room, and this is still called the herb bed. And there are some herbs in it here and there, to be fair to the herb bed. And this is where the josterberry is that I mentioned earlier. This is the josterberry plant, which is a cross between a blackcurrant and a gooseberry, which is, you can see it really is, because it's not thorny like a gooseberry at all. The leaves are quite gooseberry-like, but they're also quite blackcurrant-like. I don't know if the leaves smell like blackcurrant, I'll tell you. No, they don't. They don't smell like blackcurrant. So yeah, it's quite an interesting cross. But I don't think there are any left to show you, or else I would do. No, when I come to make the summer pudding, we'll do that. We'll do that together, and I will. I'll show you the josterberries when I get them out of the freezer. So, in case you're not familiar with them. So, oh yes, what I was going to show you was the few herbs that there are in the herb bed. So we've got fennel, bronze fennel, and we've got rosemary. Now the rosemary is surprisingly quite happy, and I do use it as well. So that's nice to have. And this is a griminy, which is a lovely herb. I brought the original plant from. I actually found some on a roadside years and years ago, and this is the descendant, or actually probably the actual same plant as that. Very long-lived ones. If you find somewhere they're happy. Lots and lots of angelica seed heads here, as ever. So all those little seeds are going to sprout up everywhere, and yeah, it'd be very difficult to deal with again, but it is what it is. One of my favourite phrases. There's some young angelica here as well. I don't think there were some other herbs, but I think they may have been a bit too smothered. There is some lemon balm, which looks like it needs cutting down. I can't see what I used to have some horehound, which is a nice plant, but I think that might have got a bit too smothered now. One of the alder trees here, and they are, as I mentioned, some of the happiest trees in the garden, apart from the one that seems to have bitten the dust. But I just thought I'd show you the green cones, which are this year's. They've come from this year's catkins. Then you've got the brown cones, which are last year's. They love hanging on to everything they've got. There aren't any more catkins left, but you've still got new leaves coming down here, as well as the existing leaves. They're still putting out more leaves this year. And then you've got the little cones. Here's even more little tiny cones coming there, as well as these green ones. So they're very, very active. They're somehow a very active tree. Here's an example of a very, very happy hazel. Oh, so tall. Look at that. Full of leaf, but with no nuts. I don't think. Not unless I've missed them all this time, which of course is possible, but I don't think so. And this is the other end of the path through the tiny forest. I'm aware that on the video it probably looks as if it's actually a big area. It's really tiny. It's only a matter of, you could pace, I haven't tried, but it's only a few paces really in each direction. It's really small. It's amazing what what tricks they play. But as you can see, it's quite a dense hopefully quite a secret, magical area. That's what I always hoped it would be. The bamboo maybe doesn't really fit with it, except that I did visit the manor at Hemmingford Grey at the weekend, which is the setting for the Green Nose stories, which I probably will talk about. I might do a little video all about that, actually. I think I will. So, but in that garden, there's a big thicket of bamboo, and it's a very traditional English garden with the clipped topiary yews and all the sort of cottage garden plants you'd imagine, and yet it has got a bamboo thicket. So possibly this is a nod to that. I was actually given this clump of bamboo when I had practically nothing in the garden, so it was a kind gift, so I put it in, and it hasn't spread too badly, but it is really tall, and you know, everything else in the garden practically is a native plant, so it's not that, but it is very traditional in English gardens, so I think we can forgive it. I was just think lastly, I'll just show you this hempegrimony. I'm sure we've looked at it in previous years. Well, there's a big clump in the front, which is maybe the one we've looked at. And in better years for butterflies, it's been absolutely full of butterflies. It just came there by itself. I didn't actually plant it or sow any seeds. It's a wild plant, hempegrimony. But I love seeing it because the butterflies cluster around it like anything. I had the whole bush was covered in red admirals one year. And they're not doing that this year because I haven't seen very many butterflies, unfortunately, again, like last year. But what it is attracting, as you can see, are flies, but I mean, pollinators of all kinds. You've got hoverflies. You can see how attractive it is to insect life, which I think, considering the state of the environment, is a good thing. You know, whatever species are enjoying it, they are wild species that are enjoying it. I can see some hoverflies there. It would be nice to think there might be some honeybees and other sort of species as well as flies, but I just saw a ladybird somewhere. I'm sure ladybirds would like it. Oh, here's a bumblebee. Let me show you a bumblebee. And I can actually see a butterfly. I am not sure whether we're going to catch the butterfly on the camera, but I did just see one flutter by. And I think that's probably the end of the tour, except to say that one of the things I'm going to do now, it's dried off because it has to say it's been raining quite a bit. What I'm thinking of it is I'm going to collect some of these seed heads from the acrolegias, which they're all different all around the garden, and because they've now all finished flowering, I don't know which was which, but they all come up differently anyway. They hybridize into most wonderful different varieties, so it doesn't really matter what they are as long as I can collect some and keep some to dry them off, and then I can scatter them around. Maybe I'll put some in a seed tray actually to get the little plants, and I can put them wherever it's appropriate for them. Probably will do that, but the first stage would be to collect them and hang up the seed heads in the paper bag until the seeds all drop out and they're properly dry before I put them away. I'm never really quite sure the best time of year to sow them, but acrolegias really like to grow anyway, so I don't think it'll matter too much. I think you'll get some little acrolegia plants in the same way as you see them popping up everywhere anyway in the garden. But if I save some seed, then I know that I can sow them somewhere, and I can put some in wherever I want them, maybe even in some pots, because they're so lovely.